Hi, you guys. Welcome to episode 2 of Truth Be Told Spilling the Spiritual Tea with Evidential Medium, Julie Clapp. Thank you so much for listening to episode 1. Today's episode is so significant when it comes to the current collective energy right now. So, today I am calling What is Keeping the Peace Costing You? So, right now, if you guys follow my messages of the day on Instagram or Facebook, you know that tomorrow's April 9th and Mars is the planet of war, but it's also the planet of energy, action, passion, is moving into the sign of Aries, which is all about fire and momentum. And obviously, we're in the year of the horse, which is also about action. It's about moving the needle in our lives. So, what does this all mean for us? The Libra full moon that was about a week and a half ago, if you felt really dense around that time, it was meant to bring more things into your awareness. And one of those themes is, how are you at war with yourself? How are you at war with your self concept? What areas of your life may you be overgiving and overcompensating, not speaking, stuffing things down, storing energy inside your physical vessel that's actually keeping you stuck, holding you back, making you settle for less than what you truly desire in your life? So, more than likely, that moon showed you what you really want and made you feel like you unapologetically want to go after it. This is a year for manifestation. And the reason why I picked talking about keeping the peace and what it's costing you is because what most people don't realize is when it comes to manifestation, everything manifests on an energy level before it manifests in the physical. And so we really need to be hyper aware of our energy, our frequency, our vibration, our embodiment, and what that is putting out when it comes to manifesting. So let's talk about keeping the peace. For all of you that are my people pleasers, my fixers, my peacekeepers, you're probably going to have a few epiphanies, and that's exactly what this episode is meant to do for you. And it takes one to know one. So I am speaking from my own personal experience and using that to share with you. I'm going to get a little vulnerable and share with you to see if it resonates. And if it resonates, then take that as these messages are for you to help you move the needle in your life and manifest what you truly deserve and desire. So let's talk about what it means to keep the peace. What I have found when I talk to a lot of people on this subject is that most people confuse keeping the peace with preserving their peace. And those two things on an energy perspective are very different. So, keeping the peace is when somebody outside of you, or there's a circumstance outside of you, that's not in agreement with you, right? So it brings up or triggers a negative emotion in you, but you don't address it. You don't do anything. You don't show up to the conflict or show up to the fight. You just kind of say, no, I'll be the peacekeeper. I will mold my energy into whatever is needed to de escalate this external energy that's going on here because that's what makes me comfortable right now. That's what makes me feel comfortable and safe right now. We're just going to de escalate. So I'm going to become whatever is needed in this moment. And when we do that, our energy is actually abandoning what is best for us. So we're prioritizing the external need, right, over the internal need. So that would be keeping the peace. That's an example of keeping the peace. When we do that, what our energy, our frequency, our vibration is communicating out is, my needs don't matter. And if your energy is saying my needs don't matter, what do you think you're going to attract to you? What do you think is the mirror of circumstances or people that are going to show up in your life to show you or reveal that message to you that you do have needs? Because God wants you to have needs. He created you as a human being on this earth too. So it's important for you to be able to balance reciprocity in your relationships of meeting other people's needs, but also being allowed to have your own as well. Now, on the flip side of that, let's talk about preserving your peace, right? So, what that would look like is you show up, there is, maybe something going on externally, a conflict, and you decide it's not threatening you in any way. You decide of, I feel like I should say something about this. I feel like I should set a boundary here because I don't want to engage in this. And so the energy that you're putting out, whether you be set a boundary, sometimes it might even be leaving, right? The situation, that is still setting a boundary. It's doing what feels right to you in that moment. It's meeting what your need is in that moment. And sometimes it's saying something that might be uncomfortable or might not be received in the way that you would like it to be received. But nonetheless, you're staying true to you, who you are, what you're feeling is right for you or aligned for you in that moment, and your actions are aligning with that knowing. So that's what it means to act from alignment. It's what your dominant belief system is, what is right for you, meeting that need, and then taking action from that knowing of this feels what's right to do in this moment, and you act on that. So that creates in our vibration or frequency a wholeness. It is coming from a place of knowing, right? So it's not coming like when we're keeping the peace from a place of fear, right? Where you're abandoning yourself, like you're just avoiding any conflict or discomfort. It's coming from a place of, no, I know who I am. I know how I'm supposed to show up in this situation. And this is what feels right and aligned for me. I am prioritizing and balancing my need versus what I feel like will serve in the external or have impact. And sometimes that impact is going to be showing up as a mirror of something that maybe another person or a structure or organization doesn't really want to see, but nonetheless is still helpful at change and transformation and evolution in that space on an energy level. So, your energy, preserving your peace or setting a boundary or prioritizing your peace inside of you, even when it means speaking to the point where it may create some discomfort, what your energy is then communicating out is, I am in knowing, I am in wholeness. There is no gaps in my authenticity or my embodiment because what I believe and what I do are the same. They are in agreement with one another, right? So that is what we call authenticity or wholeness. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit more because as I've gone into deeper layers of my consciousness and bringing that wisdom in from higher sources in the spirit realm of God, and um, I have learned that my initial beliefs of always keeping your vibration high or at a heightened level was actually not where manifestations came to fruition in the physical. It was more about authenticity. We are static beings. We are meant to move and evolve, and we are meant to ebb and flow with our vibration. What manifestation is about is who you are. That is your embodiment. So there is a dominant frequency within you that says, this is who I am. And that consists of your belief systems and that dominant frequency that you're putting out with your actions that you take from those beliefs. But your vibration, so this is like tuning into a radio station, right? The music or the beats in that vibration will shift and change. So your vibration will ebb and flow throughout the day. But do you maintain your dominant frequency? So the dominant frequency is maintained through regulatory nervous system regulation, meaning it doesn't steal from me. It doesn't take from who I am, right? Nothing giveth, nothing taketh. So nothing is taking away from my sense of self. I'm able to regulate and stay in my lane, so to speak. So that's really when you're coming There's no gaps or holes in your frequency or vibration. It's wholeness in that authenticity that you're putting out. Now, the part of that that is significant is, and there is some controversy whether this study is actually true or not, but I'm going to share it anyway because it does speak to the consciousness that comes in that I get from my higher sources of wisdom when it comes to manifestation. That authenticity is the highest frequency we can actually function at. It's not um, what most people would perceive as just positivity. It's actually authenticity, and that's different. So, there was a study called the Spain study, and it was done in Germany. I forget when, but basically, I heard of this from Gary Brecka. So he's kind of like a wellness coach in the wellness space. Now, there is controversy as to whether this actually happened or not, but he's actually spoken about this. So I'm going to share this only with the premise you can do your own research to find out if this is actually true or not. But what I have found when it comes to manifestation is the wisdom behind it makes sense to me. So that's why I'm going to share this story. Is he talks about there was a study called the Spain study. It was done in Germany. And basically, what they did is they put a bunch of people in what they call a Deferides chamber. So, what that chamber was is it's a chamber where they can measure energy, but it's devoid of any other frequency of energy other than the people that they put in the chamber. And what they did is when they would put people in there, they were able to measure their frequency or their vibration in waveform, like physics. And what they found was the highest frequency of energy was not actually gratitude. So when we say positivity and gratitude, and yes, those are higher vibrations, they're measurably higher vibrations of frequency. However, what they found was the highest frequency that a human being could emit was authenticity. So it's not all about being high vibe, it's about being whole, being true to you. This is where there's no gaps in that frequency. This is where you're going to have so much momentum with what you're putting out. I am a science girly through and through. I am a nurse. The nurse in me loves to grasp onto the science of things so that I can wrap my logic around it. So if you're like that, you're really going to like how I am going to explain manifestation to you when it comes to physics, frequency, and waveform. So when we talk about the energy that we emit, the vibration, look at it as like a wavelength, right? Or radio station, right? What's putting out, and you're going to attract similar. You're going to attract at the same level of whatever it is that you're putting out. So you're aligning frequencies. Now, when we talk about preserving your peace or keeping the peace, what we're actually doing to our wavelength. So when you walk into a room and you're at, this is your wavelength, right? Like maybe you're on your game. I used to say when I was a nurse, I would go into work with my coffee in the morning and I'd be whistling Dixie, like so happy, waking up like a ray of sunshine. And inevitably I would walk in and maybe there was a code going on, or maybe like everybody just had a really bad night. It was hectic, it was chaotic. It's a stressful environment working in a hospital, and immediately what would happen is I would be like, my energy level, right? I started to feel drained. I started to feel weighted. Started to feel stressed myself. So what happened in that scenario was that all the external energy kind of I absorbed into my energy field like a sponge, and it influenced my frequency and vibration. It brought me right down to that same level. When you look at this from a perspective of physics, what they say is if you have your wavelength is like this, right? And you come into contact with a wavelength that's going in the opposite direction as you, what that is called is destructive interference, where that wavelength that's in the opposite direction as you cancels your wavelength out. So that's what's actually happening when you're keeping the peace. You're walking into a room, you're not staying true to your wavelength, your frequency, your dominant frequency, your authenticity. You're allowing the frequency outside of you to cancel the impact of your energy. This is why it's so important to stay true to you. So that saying, be the influencer in the room, don't be influenced by the room. That's what you want to do. You want to command, you want to be true to you. God created you to be you in any and all situations. Even at the price of discomfort sometimes. And this is why you learning to regulate your inner climate is so important instead of becoming the regulator of everybody else's climate or the regulator of the discomfort in the room at the cost of your own peace, right? Now, on the other end of that spectrum, let's just say you're at this frequency and you walk into a room and everybody else is either at the same frequency as you or even a higher frequency. What's going to happen there is called constructive interference in physics, where your frequency now doubles in wavelength. So when they say you want to surround yourself with the people that lift you up, that you feel like elevate you. That is why, on an energy perspective, you're doubling your wavelength. It's pulling you, expanding you into another frequency. And I'm not saying like if you have people in your life that you're like, oh, they're so negative, that you need to just like cut them out all the time. What I'm saying is, how are you going to show up to that without letting it steal your sense of self and your authenticity? So maybe that's just bringing something into their awareness, and you can do that in a very loving and compassionate way. It might not be received that way initially, but intention matters. Um, Sometimes you need to be a mirror. God is sending you into a room to be a mirror of something to create awareness, because only in awareness are we afforded the opportunity to do things differently. And so, what I'm hoping is that this also brings something into your awareness, because for me, for years, that is how I functioned. And it wasn't really until I got into like manifestation and did a lot of healing work on myself that I actually was able to see how I was preventing myself from living the life that I was praying for. I was praying for peace. I was praying for to feel comfortable inside. I was praying for things that I wanted to manifest in my life. All the while, I just kept repeating the same patterns over and over again. And I'm not a therapist. However, I do recommend, if this resonates with you, the therapy was huge at moving the needle with me. And I'll tell you why, is because a lot of these patterns that we have require rewiring our neural pathways. And that is done through consistency. So it's not enough to just bring in the awareness, the consciousness, or the wisdom. Then how we move the needle is by integrating or embodying that frequency, that consciousness. And integration, embodiment is done from action. So even if you know, but you're not acting from that, you are repeating the same pattern. Your frequency is not shifting or changing. And this is often why people say, I know and I try, but nothing changes. And this is where therapy helped me a lot, because the consistency of repetition, of rewiring those thought patterns. So when you have neural pathways in your brain, and they take the quickest path. So it's like if you were walking through the woods and you blazed a trail, right? That now becomes a quick walking path. So your brain does the same thing. It takes the quickest path. And if these are hardwired thought patterns in your subconscious that say, if we just abandon ourselves here, if we just keep the peace outside of us, we will feel safe in this moment. But then what happens when you leave? You're drained, your energy level is low, right? That destructive interference, it brought you down. You have no fuel. Now you're using up all your energy trying to re-regulate yourself, trying to get your dominant frequency back to where it started from. So you were influenced by the room. Something was taken from you, and you're thinking it was taken from you without your consent. But the truth is when you show up and you abandon yourself while you have the awareness that you're doing it, which oftentimes, if you have patterns of like codependency and people pleasing, you're doing that, but you are taking from your vibration and you are in agreement with it. Energetically, you are showing up and repeating. So your energy is saying, I am in agreement with this. And that's why it keeps repeating. When you take a different action, and the reason why I'm saying this is now is such a perfect time to take a different action because of the astrological placements of Mars. I mean, anytime is a great time to take this action, but because what the astrology is supporting right now in the collective consciousness energetically is unprecedented. It is amazing. It is really a time when you know, since COVID, many people have been feeling like we've been kind of like trudging through the mud, like slowly getting somewhere. This is a time to like catapult as you do things differently, opening up windows, doorways of opportunity, opening up floodgates where you really start to see things differently, where relationships can transform and really become um, healthy and with reciprocity in them. So, this is a time to really think, what do I truly desire in my life, and to be really unapologetic about what you want, what that vision is, and hold tight to that vision, and then do whatever you have to do, because Mars says, I'm going to call you out on the carpet to take the action. I'm going to call you out of the carpet to take the action that aligns with what you know now. And so, again, awareness alone is not enough. You have to integrate and embody that consciousness by taking action from those new beliefs, that new awareness. And the reason why I say therapy is because I'm the one that kind of brings you in the consciousness, the wisdom, the epiphany, and shares my experience of how it moved the needle in my life. But that is where you're going to get the consistency to rewire those neural pathways in your brain that say, oh, no, I'm not taking that path anymore. We don't need to do that to feel safe anymore. There's a new way. And the more you start blazing those new trails, believe it or not, you're opening up new channels energetically on an energy perspective to manifest new outcomes, new results in your life. And once you start to see the external change, you start to feel you're feeling different, you're showing up different, you're taking different action. The external, it's law, it's energetic law of physics of the universe and the earth plane that we live in. It is going to adjust accordingly. And the thing with manifestation is you can't control other people. So having the awareness, sometimes things aren't going to go perfect, right? But this, you have to remember, this is between you and God. This is what your soul came here for. You came here to create a beautiful life for yourself. And anytime you find yourself abandoning yourself and not doing what feels right or aligned, I want you to remember, on an energy perspective, you're consenting to giving your energy away. When you start to pull that back, you're standing in your power. Your frequency says, I know who I am, even when you don't know who I am. I know my intention is pure, is loving, is kind, is compassionate. It's knowing thyself. Spirit gave me that message a long time ago. Knowing thyself is to understand others. You can show up a lot more compassionate than you think you will, a lot more empathetic when you truly know yourself and believe in yourself enough to even be a mirror, enough to even create a little discomfort, enough to show up in confidence of influencing a room instead of being influenced by the room and leaving disempowered and then having to regroup your energy. And I know for the years that I did that, it could take me days, it could take me weeks sometimes to regroup my energy and kind of get back to me. Um, and so when you start to rewire these patterns and you start to take different actions, you will realize you are liberating so much of your energy that was tied up in chaos, tied up where your energy field was accumulated with all this junk from other people that you're then processing. And this is really common pattern for people who are very empathic, for healers, for intuitives, for mediums, even people who work in healthcare, people who just have this innate nurturing energy about them that wants to care for other people. This is a really common pattern. And so recognizing where you end and the outside world begins, and keeping that boundary and keeping your energy field pure. I remember years ago listening to a podcast with John Edwards, and I think it was Ed Milet's podcast, but nonetheless, he was trying to describe what our energy field is like. And he was saying, like, if somebody invited you to their house and they were having a cookout and their pool was green and they were like, jump in the pool, would you jump in the pool? You'd be like, I'm not going in that pool. We'll start to look at people's energy field like that. And then you'll be more apt to set boundaries when their pools are muddy, right? They're showing up with a green pool. You're not going to dive in. And same thing with your pool. If you want to keep your pool crystal clear and pure, then are you going to let somebody who just like walked in covered in mud jump in your pool? No, you're not going to do that. You're going to have energy. This is energy hygiene awareness, right? So you're not going to just invite those people to dive into your pool. This is the same thing. Why do you keep inviting people to dive into your pool? Why do you keep diving into theirs? Stop throwing yourself in the fires that burning you over and over again. Start to set boundaries, start to feel confident, start to stand in the energy that God told you to come here and stand in that energy and feel confident. This is what Mars is, warrior energy. This is meant to bring out that warrior in you. And I hope you feel that as you're listening to these words. I hope you feel like your energy, that vibration of saying, yes, I want to get to know myself. Yes, I do want to feel that way. Yes, I am going to start to command my vibration. Yes, I do deserve and I desire and I deserve, and I'm unapologetic about it because that's what God wants for you. So at the end of the day, don't expect Rome to be built in a day. I want you to be gentle with yourself, but I also want you to balance that with being disciplined with yourself and saying, I can do this, and start believing yourself. And as you start to liberate this energy, what you're going to notice in your energy centers too is when you stop patterns of self abandonment, you increase your personal power, because your personal power energy center is really tied to your intuition. And so even me, when I was in patterns of people pleasing and very much self abandonment, keeping the peace outside of me and sacrificing the peace inside of me, I had a very strong sense of intuition for everybody else. I mean, I'm a psychic medium. I was reading people every day. But what I was doing was silencing my intuitive voice for me. So when I was seeking guidance for myself, I would be procrastinating and uncertain and just not trusting the decisions I was making. And the reason why is because if your intuition is saying, you should say this even though it's uncomfortable, or you should do this even though they might not like that, and you silence that voice because you say, no, that doesn't feel safe to me. No, that's going to be too uncomfortable. Nope, we don't want to do that. We don't want to rock the boat here. What you're doing is you're taking the voice of your intuition for yourself and you're turning its volume off. You're saying, I don't listen to that. I listen to my nervous system that feels threatened right now. This is why regulating your nervous system is of utmost importance, so that when you do show up to conflict, you can have healthy conflict. You can still be in your authenticity. You can still express yourself without abandoning yourself. And that's going to create more wholeness in your vibration, your frequency. You're going to be at the frequency of authenticity. It doesn't need to be positive and high vibe all the time. And some things are going to happen that you're not initially going to feel grateful for. And so sometimes trying to convince yourself that you're grateful for something that's challenging and difficult and doesn't feel great, feels uncomfortable, is actually just spiritual bypassing and gaslighting yourself. It's not authentic. It's okay to say, of course, I feel this way right now. It doesn't mean I'm going to stay feeling this way. Allow emotion to be in motion. Move it, and then you will move. You will start to take different action. You will not feel stuck. You will not be in repetition. You will start to create new neural pathways of thoughts. Thoughts leads to new emotions. Emotions leads to new actions. And you start to do things differently. Guess what? Now you're in the wholeness of your authenticity. You're embodying that consciousness, that wisdom. You've integrated it into who you are, and what you manifest is who you are. So preserve your peace. No keeping the peace outside of you. This is about staying true to you and being in your authenticity. And this is exactly the time to do it. Mars is the warrior. It's bringing out the warrior in you. And it's saying, now's the time to go after what you want. So I thank you guys for being here with me and listening. I hope you like my new mic. We're upping our sound game here on the podcast. Spilling all the spiritual tea. Let me know what you want to hear next. I have some ideas, and I'll see you guys soon.